Now, when it comes to large sums of money, people may think that it needs to involve stress, hard work, frustration, etc., etc. They may think that. And I remember personally in 2004 when I read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He said something like, if you believe that money is the result of hard work alone, perish the thought. Now, personally, when I read it, I thought that it wasn't making any sense. It didn't make any sense to me. Because if I look at my life growing up, that is how I got the money, through hard work and stress. As a matter of fact, when I looked around, I would see people getting money, and I would think, I need to do what they're doing in order to get the money. And I also thought that what they were doing was from a place of stress and frustration. Now, I don't know where I got these beliefs from, and it doesn't matter. The bottom line is that as a result of applying the information in the book in 2004, I got out of $50,000 debt as I set a definite chief aim to have in my possession a particular amount of money. And that happened. And then I applied the principles in the book to move up in my corporate career and thus have more money, and then start and grow an IT business to success, which I built in 2009 to 13. And then I moved into consulting and started my other YouTube channel, which now has over 400,000 subscribers. And so many millions of dollars were generated in a way that was not force and stress-based. Not force and stress-based, by releasing that conditioning. So as a result of releasing that conditioning stored in the subconscious mind, the conditioning that suggests it needs to be force-based, stress-based, etc., rather than a reflection of who you are, manifested naturally through doing what you love to do. And that could sound like a force-based thing to do. Do what you love to do. See, you naturally do what you love to do without resistance, as that resistance is generated by that conditioning stored in the subconscious mind. So today I would like to explore with you exactly how to release that resistance. And we're going to even explore, based on personal experience, how I've seen it happen, not just with myself, but also working with thousands of businesses. And this is inspired by a section in my book. We'll get to that in a moment. I'll link in the description to the book. So in essence, you are perfection. You are, as I say sometimes, that infinite love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Where do we experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment? We experience it in consciousness. We experience it in consciousness as all these things that we define as happiness. For example, if a person has large sums of money in their bank account, they may call that a form, a physical form of happiness. The reality is that they are the happiness that they seek for. And so thus they're experiencing happiness with the money, with the relationships, with the material possessions, not because of it. The source of happiness is within. The source of happiness is you. And more specifically, you can, by releasing the conditioning, allow that happiness to manifest as all these things that you once desired. In this particular channel, we talk about being in flow, doing what you love to do, which is just the natural result of being as you are, which is the natural result of knowing who you are. And then the reflection of that is the money. So Napoleon Hill also in Think and Grow Rich mentioned that money is the result of multiplying in entrepreneurship, multiplying, and actually in career as well. the quality, quantity, and spirit of service. Now, that could sound like a force-based thing to do. Now it's time to multiply my quality, quantity, spirit of service. The reality is you are that perfection, and service is a manifestation of that perfection. It happens naturally in flow. Now, in my group coaching and mastermind service, the premise, I like to start off our Monday conversations in the group by going over a similar mind map. The pure intention, what I have found from my experience and working with thousands of entrepreneurs over the years, of how that money manifested effortlessly. So through the pure intention, knowing who you are, and then through pure intention, you manifest that large sums of money. And again, I speak from experience on this. So this is the intention we set. The premise of the service and the premise of our conversation and everything on this channel here is to generate and enjoy an increasingly lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, number one. Number two, enjoy a wonderful lifestyle, whatever you consider to be a wonderful lifestyle. For example, with members, we met up on the weekend. I was in Toronto. We did a meetup with members in Toronto, and then I flew over to New York the next day in the morning, and then I did a meetup with members in New York, and then I flew back the next day. So I got to have wonderful experiences, stay in wonderful places, hang around with wonderful people, doing exactly what I love to do. And it doesn't feel like work. Someone could say, Joseph, you were working on the weekend. You could say it that way if you would like. Honestly, I just do what I love to do. And the natural result of that is the money. So you can, at the same time, while you're generating the lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, enjoy a wonderful lifestyle. And also, at the same time, you can invest toward long-term wealth, a harmonious future, benefiting everyone greatly through the knowledge, wisdom, and expertise you acquire along the way, as articulated here with the Robert Dilts logical levels. As you know, I like to refer to this. Here you are on top, existing as that pure awareness, and your real nature is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. That is pure consciousness. So in other words, you are the light of awareness, and you have a vision. That vision is to generate a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, to enjoy a wonderful lifestyle as you do that, and also invest toward long-term wealth and a harmonious future, all in a flow-based way. It does not need to be in a stress, force-based way. I can honestly say that from experience. As mentioned, in the earlier stages of my life, I thought it was a force, stress-based way, and that is how it happened. But then I said, it can be in an effortless, flow-based way, and that is the way. That is the natural way. And so I chose the flow-based way. So I teach flow-based way. Now, as you have a vision, what happens is all these layers here in the Robert Dilts logical levels appear to transform effortlessly and naturally as you remain in flow. The personal identity, you become more of who you are. That's the personal identity that continues to appear to transform, to reflect you being as you are, as perfection, because that could sound nebulous. What is perfection? You know what that perfection is in form. And so you manifest that in flow. Values and beliefs may transform. That's the mind purification that happens along the way. As I was mentioning, those beliefs stored in the subconscious mind that generate the stress, the frustration, the resistance, the effortful path, we could say, are dissolved along the way. Also what happens is skills are cultivated. Skills are cultivated, behaviors transform, or habits are formed, ideal habits and environments transform. So with respect to generating a lavish, steady, dependable income, consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, I speak about in my book these three areas here, which can be done in a force-based way or happen naturally in an effortless, fun, joyous, flow-based way, which upon connecting the dots looking backwards, as Steve Jobs had mentioned in his commencement speech, You can say, this is what I was doing, yet it happened so effortlessly that you could say it didn't feel like you were doing it in flow. If you are not in flow and you're stressing and frustrating, then you can honestly say that it was stress-based, and no shame, no condemnation. So these areas here, prospecting, lead generation, client acquisition, and ongoing client relationships. When we look back at the journey, when we generate those millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever you'd like, we can say, yeah, I was prospecting. I was generating leads. I was acquiring clients. I was engaging in ongoing business with the existing clients because they have benefited greatly from my products and services. So they come back and buy additional products and services. They take you up on referrals where you may get a cut out of that deal. You may partner with other businesses to do particular kinds of offers together. And that could even sound like force-based thing to do. The thing about it is, consider, I also talk about this in flow-based prosperity, the assets, the physical assets, digital assets, intangible assets, and the relationships naturally emerge in flow to be in harmony and in contribution. So if the individual might ask, what ideas do you have for prospecting and lead generation? They may have that question. Totally fine. You can download a copy of this mind map here. I've got about 49 ideas here. I did have 50. And then I have 50 on this one for client acquisition and 50 for ongoing client relationships. Any one of these. Let's explore some of them. And let's talk about how resistance is released along the way. So if the individual reads any of these right here, they are aware of what they think, how they emotionally relate, and the behaviors in relation to reading it. So for example, if we read this one here, network at industry awards, a person may think, I can't do that. What I teach is do not identify with that thought. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but if you suggest that you can't do it, you might not allow that possibility to emerge. And if you say, well, I can't do it because of this or that reason, you can say, if you would like, to ease the mind, there can be a way, or my way is the best way, which your way is the best way. So rather than looking at it perhaps as network, as industry awards, you could say, let's attend some events where they give out awards for my industry. Just by hanging out at these kinds of events, you can make some connections. It just naturally, spontaneously happens without resistance. You may meet some prospects. These kinds of offline events are great sources for leads. You see how by shifting perspective, and more specifically, seeing it how it really truly is, in harmony. Remember here I put it, you are that pure awareness, and your real nature is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So can you really see things as they are? And by really seeing things as they are, it means not to put any kind of bias of limitation or lack on the appearance. So just by reading these, for example, and going through, just as we can go through a number of these, you dissolve the conditioning. How do I know? Because I have been a consultant since 2013, and I've consulted with thousands of businesses, and I've generated a number of millionaires. And then I've also turned businesses around. Their revenues were low or they were running at a loss to being profitable again. And they're not just being profitable, but have their net margins increase just by having conversations with them, exploratory conversations where we explore together like this. And all I'm doing is being aware of what I think, how I emotionally relate, and any kind of tension in the body in relation to these particular ideas. It doesn't mean you have to do these ideas. Consider, as I mentioned in my book, optimization, automation, delegation, elimination in part or in whole or in combination. You may automate these things, you may delegate these things, some of these things you might not do, which is elimination, or you may optimize. You may do it in a way that is your style, as your style is the best style. So it could be a variation, as just I mentioned. But as I have this conversation with clients, and they too are aware of what they think, how they emotionally relate, and how they behave in relation to this, they can discern, and by that it is meant very specifically, the individual based on conditioning in mind, as a result of identification to conditioning in mind, may have a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response to these statements, and no shame or condemnation. In that moment, they could do nothing, and by that it is meant release that identification. Let the thoughts be, let the emotions be, let the body be. And that is how they release the conditioning. And then clarity arises. They can, as I always say, really think for themselves now. They can now really think for themselves. So rather than thinking from the foundation, which is a faulty foundation of that belief of limitation, which is a confirmation bias where they do not see the opportunities, they no longer identify with that belief, which is distorting reality, and they can now see clearly. Now, what's interesting is that we have these exploratory conversations, is they might end up doing some of these things spontaneously, naturally, in flow. Isn't that interesting? Prior to the conversation, they would think that they would never do something like this. But if they were honest with themselves, and the way you can be honest with yourself, that could sound like a force-based thing to do. Honest with yourself means just don't identify with those thoughts of limitation. Let the emotions be. Let the body be. Let the world be. Then you know who you are, and you can't lie to yourself. You know that you are that pure awareness, and you know that your real nature is love, happiness, peace, and bliss, and fulfillment. As it naturally permeates the mind and body. It naturally permeates the mind as ideas. It naturally permeates the body as how you feel. It naturally permeates the body as how your body flows, which we can then say you're displaying charisma or confidence. All these things that the individual tries to do naturally manifest as a result of knowing who they are. Now, what ends up happening is they may do some of these things, which at one point we can say sounded scary to them. They may not do these things. They may do a variation of these things. But whatever it is they do, it is naturally what they genuinely from the heart desires, what they naturally desire to do. And that is true if they are involved with directly the prospecting, the lead generation, the client acquisition, or ongoing business with the existing clients, or indirectly, as in they have team members that do it. Because it's not like you have to become a salesperson in order for your business to grow. You can acquire a wonderful team or one person that can do the sales for you. And they love to do it. You do what you love to do. Maybe you like doing the client fulfillment or the operations. You do that. You just do what you love to do. I just do what I love to do. And they do what they love to do. So all I do is I explore these ideas with them, and you can download a copy of this mind map, link is in the description, various ideas, and then we see what emerges. And rather than fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, if you're about to identify, there is a space. You can react, or you can choose to let it be or respond clearly. And by let it be, naturally what emerges is the response. That's flow. So let's look at some of these now in prospecting and lead generation. So what is prospecting? Prospecting is going to events or venues, online, offline, groups, etc., with the intention to meet individuals that would be interested in your products and services. That could sound like a force-based thing to do. It only sounds like a force-based thing to do or a stress-based thing to do based on identification. It naturally happens in flow if you do it. Lead generation is putting out videos and an opt-in form, for example, or running some ads, for example, where you offer some information or some value, and they join your mailing list, or they book a call with you, or they put in their phone number so you can send them some messages via text, etc. And again, that could sound like a force-based thing to do based on conditioning. It's not. And it doesn't mean you have to do prospecting or lead generation. Your style, and if you do it, happens naturally. But inevitably, what it results in is having in your possession that $1 million, $100,000, or whatever you'd like. Let's look at partner with complementary businesses for webinars or live streams. So that's also done effortlessly if you genuinely desire to do that. If you genuinely desire to do it, if that's the intuitive step, yet there's resistance to that intuitive step, you could release that resistance by chunking it down. So for example, I've worked with a number of clients. They want to do this one. They want to partner with complementary businesses or businesses that do the same things. There's a benefit to that because businesses that do the same thing have access to clients, their leads and prospects. And by partnering with them, you can acquire those clients for your business and give them a percentage on that deal. And so by partnering with complementary businesses for webinars where you jump on their webinar, they jump on yours together, they bring their list, you bring your list onto the webinar, and you have a conversation that benefits everyone, that is mutually beneficial. Now that might seem like a lot of work, stress, and force-based. So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi in his book Flow mentions that flow can be accessed in the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. Where challenge meets skill, you can access the flow. Not force, it's flow. Legitimately, it's pure flow. Anandamide, the bliss molecule, which generates the experience of bliss and reconciles divergent and convergent thinking, manifests in the body in flow, just as it does in a meditation. So, what I mention sometimes to my clients is, rather than seeing that you got to do all these things to put this together, and it could seem like a daunting task, chunk it down. Chunk it down into a bunch of steps, and all you do is take the first step effortlessly, and then you're in the flow, and then the next step emerges, and then you connect the dots looking backwards, and you say, not only did I have a wonderful webinar, I acquired clients, and I released that conditioning that suggests that I can't do it. It would be hard and it would be stress-based. So let's look at another one here. Create a free online community. So a person may think there's a lot of work to do online community. If you genuinely desire to do it, it doesn't mean you have to do it. You could do it if you'd like to do it. So any of these prospecting or lead generation ways here, I always say your way is the best way. It's whatever works. A variation of these could be these verbatim, could be a variation, could be something else. I find as we have these exploratory conversations, what happens is your style of doing things naturally emerge. So my style, when I coach, when I consult, is I don't tell people what to do in a force-based way. I don't say, you need to do this, you should do this, you must do it. If you don't do it, it's not going to work. I can honestly say from personal experience, being a consultant since 2013, 10 years in corporate prior to that, that the individual's way, their distinct style is the best way. And I may have experienced the way. I may think my way is the best way for me. It's true. But it does not mean that my way is the best way for them. It means their way is the best way. My way is the best way. Your way is the best way. And our way is the best way. Thus, there's only the way. And so what does that look like for you? It naturally emerges when you allow space for that to emerge. So if a person genuinely desires to create an online community, they may think it's a lot of work. Well, what I've seen when I've worked with businesses who have created free online communities is there are people that emerge within the group that take on the responsibility of managing the group. They become those that are the moderators. So they genuinely desire to do it. That's the interesting thing. It's not like you're forcing them to become a moderator. It's not like you're trying hard to look for people that could take care of these nuances. They naturally emerge in flow. I just remain in flow. I just do what I love to do. If what you love to do is show up to the online community and do a weekly Zoom session or something like that, or do a handful of posts, and that's what your community finds to be very helpful, and then people and automation, it's not just people, it's automation, technology, etc. I've been in technology for many years. That also spontaneously arises to be supportive. Growing up with computers, I always saw technology to be supportive. And because I see it that way, it always is supportive. So just as this is true for prospecting and lead generation, we got 50 examples here for tweaks for optimizing your client acquisition. So you bring the prospect or the lead onto an exploratory conversation, whether it be online or offline, whatever you'd like, whatever's flow for you, which also happens to be flow for them. Then you have a conversation. But if you find that the prospects or the leads are not converting into clients, rather than shaming or condemning yourself, shaming or condemning them, or thinking that you don't know how to do this, it's not going to work, you can explore some of these nuanced points. Again, I provide 50 of them in this document here. Let's explore a few. And then we can see if this is the area to optimize based on the data. I always say this, there's no such thing as rejection. By that it is meant that if a person says no, they don't want to do the deal with you, they don't want to move forward with the deal, you have optimization data. You can adjust many of these things here, which can convert no's into yeses. No's are converted into yeses in client acquisition, not by force or frustration. I don't do that. I don't recommend that because that could result in refunds and buyer's remorse. And what I'm interested in is wonderful relationships. So, that stated, there are ways to optimize so that it is a no-brainer, you can say it that way, for the prospects to become clients because they see it is genuinely what they're looking for, provided that it is genuinely what they're looking for, that it genuinely provides them the results that they're looking for. Of course, they're going to buy it. It makes sense. They exchange some money for the value. As mentioned, your service is the natural manifestation of being as you are. Unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment plays out as giving and receiving is one. So I say this sometimes, the student and teacher are one. The service provider and those that receive the service are one in flow. There is no separation. So walk leads through your process visually. This has been very helpful for me. One of the things that I used to do when I would do sessions to acquire consulting clients is we would jump on a call and I would use Lucidchart and I would have these maps set up, these flow charts actually. They weren't mind maps, they were flow charts set up. And I would walk them through how I optimize a business. And they would say things like, wow, I've never worked with a consultant that is this methodical, that has this kind of way that I've never known to exist. And actually, not only is this helpful for what you can do, and not only can this benefit us, I can do something like this in my business. I can look at our SOPs, our projects, etc., and put something like this in place. So now, not only do I get that deal, as I fulfill in that deal and have wonderful experiences, they now just said in that conversation that they're interested in this next step. And so what happens is after I deliver on that service and they have a wonderful experience, I propose it. I say, you remember that thing that you said you wanted done? We could do that for you. And they say yes. Another one is highlight guarantees, if you have guarantees, or risk reducers, we can call it that. So essentially, when it comes to consulting, acquiring clients, and this is true for all industries, the prospects are sitting there, the leads are sitting there, and they're asking the question inwardly, is this going to be helpful for me? Is this going to help me generate the income? Is this going to help me grow my business? Is this going to help me reduce my expenses, etc., etc., etc.? And then if you say something like, this is how much it is to sign up, it's 5,000 or 10,000, they might think that that's a lot of money. And that's totally fine. No shame, no condemnation. I may say things like, that's okay. You don't have to go with that one. But one thing that we can do is we can do 1 month together, or we could do 3 or 4 sessions together. And if you find that to be helpful, then I can credit that forward towards the bigger deal. And because I know I can deliver on it and produce the results, we see that they do credit forward towards the bigger deal. So rather than forcing them to do the $5,000 or $10,000 deal, over the course of the journey, they've invested 5, 10, 15, 20, 30,000 plus. And this is again based on personal experience. And they have gotten those returns along the way. And they continue to get those returns. So let's say they invested $10,000, they saved like $50,000. That's an example. or they invested $10,000, they make $50,000. That's an example. So of course they're going to continue to invest in it. It makes total sense they would invest in it because they continuously get what you are promising. As long as you deliver on your promises, the conversion for ongoing client relationships increases. And notice as I'm talking about all these things, there is no stress, there is no frustration. It's just completely exploratory conversations with people. It's just two human beings relating ideally, relating harmoniously, without the conditioning, naturally. What I have seen is without the stress and frustration of doing these sales presentations or client acquisition sessions, without trying to forcefully convert the clients, if they don't buy, the next prospect that shows up, they end up buying. And that's perfectly fine. I achieve my numbers. And what I've seen a lot of times is that prospect who didn't buy comes back later on and buys. So it wasn't the right time for them. I'm not interested in forcing them. They know what is best for them. I know what is best for me. And I choose to work with businesses that genuinely want to do the deal. And what I have found as a result of that is everyone benefits greatly. There's no stress, there's no frustration, there's no emotional dysregulation, there's no nervous system dysregulation, there's no confusion thoughts, just wonderful harmony. And so the natural result of that is, let's go back to the Robert Dilts logical level, you remain as you are, existing as you are, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. You are that pure awareness. Your real nature is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment as you experience it in consciousness with the prospecting, with the lead generation, with the client acquisition, with the ongoing client relationships, which can be referrals, and there's a number of nuance points here to help you increase the conversions. Again, I'll link in the description to the mind map. And all these areas appear to transform the personal identity. You just become more of who you are. Values and beliefs, the limiting beliefs that restrict the flow that are stored in the subconscious mind dissolve. Capabilities, the cultivation of direct response marketing skills, consultative sales skills, copywriting skills. It just manifests more so. Someone point to you and say, oh, you are way more skilled in your consultative sales, in your direct response marketing, in your copywriting. You are way more skilled in your behaviors, your environment, etc., habits. And I brought up consultative selling, direct response marketing, copywriting. If you would like to explore further, if you have any questions, you could leave one in the comments section and we can explore. I cover these as well in my entrepreneurial program where I focus on innovation, sales, marketing, operations, finance, leadership. With respect to innovation, sales, marketing, we gather that optimization data and optimize, here's some examples given in this mind map, through the prospecting, lead generation, client acquisition, which happens via consultative sales, direct response marketing, copywriting. So just by being as you are in flow, you have in your possession large sums of money, multiplying. And you also have a wonderful time, so then you can enjoy the different areas of your life as well. So it's not just about making money, but it's also about then having, as I mentioned, the intention of our mind map here, you get to enjoy an increasingly lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. You also get to, at the same time, enjoy a wonderful lifestyle. Do the things you love to do. How else do you want to live other than the way you really want to live? You genuinely desire to be who you are. You are already that, actually. It just happens. And money is the way the theater plays out, that is an exchange for service and results for the client. And service is what you love to do. I just do what I love to do. I mentioned, I loved computers. I grew up with it. I just naturally went into a corporate career. And also, because I was identified before Think and Grow Rich with force and stress and frustration-based beliefs, I was actually doing what I love to do. This was interesting at particular points in the earlier stages before Think and Grow Rich. But at times, I would just generate these illusions of stress, frustration, even while I was doing what I love to do. Isn't that interesting? And so I dissolved that programming. I continued to do what I love to do. The natural reflection of that service is the money. and all I do is remain in flow. And as you and I are no different. Now, if I say this, and this sounds unbelievable, I understand. Remember what I said when I first read Think and Grow Rich? That statement that he said sounded unbelievable. Let's say it becomes more believable as you prove it in equation. You actually experience it happening more so. And it continues to multiply, I can assure you. I notice this every day. It gets more and more and more effortless. I didn't think that could be like this. If you would have told me this 15, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. I don't think that I would have that kind of openness to even hear this right now. So congratulations. If you're open to hear this, that means that this is just a confirmation of what you already know. Certainly, it proves the point. It's the fact that you exist as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Your real way of life is flow. That is the way of life. The way of life is flow. And you can have a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, because that's how money works. You exchange your service, as Earl Nightingale said in The Stranger's Secret, which I absolutely love. I used to listen to it over and over again. You exchange your product or service for compensation. And that could sound like a force-based thing to do. Create products and services, sell products and services. It happens naturally in flow, just by being as you are. That is it. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.